Everyone and their mother has posted a video about this new time fantasy. Okay, so what is it actually called? The 100 best fantasy books of all time. Time magazine, a very reputable publication, has staked their claims of what is the best fantasy and what isn't. And even though, as I just said, a ton of people have posted their videos, I have people who subscribe to me, so I think you care about my opinions, and I wanted to talk about it. So I thought, let's give it a go. First, let's talk about the good things. A lot of people I see are mentioning that one of the bad things about this, or one of the things they don't like about this list, is that they use multiple books from series. I actually really like that. I think we lose a lot of nuance and discussion around best fantasy of all time when just talking full series, because some series start really well and have excellent starts and then bad beginnings, and so we take the whole series as being bad without talking about the great ones. And I'll talk about an example I think is The Golden Compass and the His Dark Materials trilogy, where the first two I think are excellent. The third one kind of missed the landing, but we forget how good those first two were because the last one drags a little bit. And so I like that they take that into account, and there's some very interesting choices on here that I want to talk about in that vein. Secondly, I like that fantasy authors are involved. This list mentions specifically, let's see, N.K. Jemisin, Neil Diamond, Sabaa Tahir, Tomi Adeyemi, Diana Gabaldon, George R.R. Martin, Cassandra Clare, and Marlon James. I like that. I don't like that that is the only panel. I think you need to have some industry pull, but also because all those authors are so intimately involved, not just in their own works, but in their colleagues' works. Everything from feeling too loyal to certain personalities because they're friends. Remember, all these authors at least have met each other bodily, and that just changes your perception of everything. Or petty, politics. We just don't know. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. It's just true at any industry that being in the industry changes your thoughts. And so that's why a lot of panels and larger awards are by large amounts of people from inside and outside the industry. So obviously this is just a time thing, so it's okay they do that. But to really get down deep into that, I wish they had been more specific. All right, now let's talk about, before getting to the list itself, let's talk about the bad. This is so hard. Okay. Temper, bring it down. My two probably favorite working authors both got shafted in this list. Steven Erikson, in my opinion, the fantasy writer above all others, doesn't get a single mention on here, which is mind-boggling to me. And then even on top of that, Robin Hobb is not mentioned here, whose prose so much better than everybody else's. Okay, I can't focus on that. I want to talk about that a lot. The depth of theme in both of those authors, the beautifulness of their tales, oh man, okay. I just gotta get by this because I will rave and rant like a madman that these two authors are not involved. Just know I am pissed about that. Anyway, let's move on and just go through the list itself and see what we think here. All right. So Arabian Nights, that's obvious. Good call. Les Meurtres d'Arthur, that's very good. Yes, of course. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, yes. Through the Looking Glass. Okay, so I'm not going to read every single one of these. A lot of these I really agree with. Okay, here's the first thing I want to talk about, and I'm excited it's in here, and I think this is a good addition to talking about series as a whole. So Lion, Witch of the Wardrobe is on there. That's sort of the one everyone knows about Narnia. In my opinion, the best Narnia book is The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. It's unique, it's different, it has a fascinating story and theme that goes beyond just sort of allegories of Christian tales. I really, really love Eustace and the Dragon and that episode. I love Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I'm so glad that made the list. I think that's really, really cool. And again, a good part about putting in multiple books in a series in here is you get to highlight some of these inner books that aren't often talked about in these ways. Obviously, Lord of the Rings should be there. A little bit of hay was made by people saying The Hobbit shouldn't be in there, but I agree with that. I think that's fine. The Hobbit is good, but if The Hobbit was just by itself without the Lord of the Rings, it would be like a lovely little tale. I don't think it would be best fantasy of all time. I love The Hobbit. I love reading about it, but I don't know if it should be on the top 100. I guess now that I'm saying it out loud, 100 is a big number. And, maybe I'll just leave that there. But that doesn't, keep me up at night because there's so much Lord of the Rings. Once Your Future King is here by T.H. White. Just again, reminder to myself, I need to read that book. I haven't read it. I haven't read a lot of Arthurian stuff. I need to do that. Dragonflight by Anne McCaffrey. Let me just say, I was not a huge fan, but it's had such a huge impact on so many authors. I totally understand why it's there, so I'm okay with that. Not a lot of thoughts on here. I love that Ursula K. Le Guin is on here multiple times. I haven't read a lot of her, but from her influence, I'm glad she's here. And she's not really talked about all that much. Madeleine L'Engle, I haven't read any at all, but A Wrinkle in Time, the movie, really turned me off from her. That's not fair. I just thought I'd say that when I see her name. That's what I think of, unfortunately. Redwall, I think, is great to be on there. I think this is a good example of something that wouldn't normally make a list that should make the list, because maybe as a work, it's not on its own, it can't stand up to Lord of the Rings, but it's so influential in bringing children into the world. And that is why, getting to something that I was thinking about talking about later, I think Aragon should have been on this list by Christopher Paolini, because I think that is a fantastic introduction to the fantasy genre for 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And it distills a lot of the greatness of a lot of things like Anne McCaffrey and Redwall and Narnia and all these things into a more modern, digestible bit. And I just still really like that series, even though I agree that it is definitely riffing on the genre and then sometimes ripping it off. But I think it does so in a great way that I think it deserves to be on here. Here's an interesting one. Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. This is crazy to me because George R. R. Martin obviously knows Wheel of Time, and he's on the panel here, but Eye of the World is fine, but if you like the Wheel of Time series, that's not why you like it. The Eye of the World is sort of a tropey start to the story, but it lays a foundation for when all of those tropes and characters are sort of twisted and grow past what we would expect, and the world grows greater than we would expect. I think The Shadow Rising, Crown of Swords, at least what's the last one called? A Memory of Light. If you're gonna put one in there, I understand maybe because that's a Brandon Sanderson, Robert Jordan one, that might be a little tense, but Eye of the World maybe just because it's the first one, but even The Great Hunt I think is better at having still those tropes, but in a more interesting way. I don't know. I mean, I guess because it's the first one I got on there, but since there are none of the other ones on there, strikes me as odd. I think there should be more Wheel of Time ones on there. Probably Eye of the World because it's the first one, and then, like I said, Shadow Rising, and maybe A Memory of Light. Outlander I haven't read. Guys, should I read Outlander? Let me know in the comments. Tigana by Guy Gabriel Kay. I have not read any GGK, and a lot of people say I should because he's a little Erickson-esque to some people, and I definitely will be reading Tigana. It's on my Amazon wish list. It's coming. Don't worry. But I'm glad it's here because I think he is someone that I feel popular fantasy circles, not a lot of people know about. So glad it's there. I already mentioned Golden Compass. That is fantastic, by the way. If anyone out there has not gotten into his Dark Materials and you're an adult and you're thinking, oh, that's YA, it's definitely not YA. It kind of got brushed in there because they wanted to ride the coattails of, the Harry Potter success, but it is a fantastic work. And at heart, it's a treatise on growing up into your sexuality, into your whole personhood from childhood to adulthood in a very deep way, and exploring how things like religion or just very strict boundaries can hinder that. It's fascinating. It's fantastic. You should read The Golden Compass. I haven't read any Neil Gaiman, so I'm going to stay away from that. I know I need to. I will. I love that Prisoner of Azkaban is on here. It's interesting. The book Prisoner of Azkaban is great. It's a turning point in the series. The movie is really where I think is phenomenal, but I'm glad it gets on there. I love that A Storm of Swords instead of Game of Thrones makes this list. I do think that is the best Game of Thrones book. Really good. Love that. Haven't read a lot of Discworld, so... Okay, this is a hot take maybe. A lot of people were upset there wasn't more Brandon Sanderson. I loved this amount of Sanderson. In this book in particular, Mistborn: The Final Empire, the first book in the Mistborn Era 1 was on here. Because to me, that's what Brandon Sanderson should have. I've made it known. I think his stories are great, but his writing leaves some to be desired. But what he undeniably has done is introduced people to the idea of hard magic systems and their potential for storytelling. And I think Mistborn is the best example of that. Much better, I shouldn't say much better, but better than the Stormlight Archive. And for all that the good tale of the Stormlight Archive is, I don't think it's an all-timer. Check my reviews, I go over that in detail, but I'm glad Mistborn makes this list. People might be surprised about that, but I think that's good, because that is his huge mark on fantasy. And I think a positive one in some sense. I still favor soft magic, but I think the uniqueness and what he has done with hard magic system, undeniably cool, undeniably impressive. Name of the Wind, I like it being up there. Far superior to The Wise Man's Fear. Let's see here. N.K. Jemisin I also haven't read. Not for like any purposeful reason, I just haven't gotten there yet. But I will. I don't know some of these. I don't have strong feelings. Again, N.K. Jemisin. Okay. Six of Crows by Lee Bardugo. Don't understand. It's fine. Fine. Top 100 best fantasy of all time? I just don't think so. I'm just going to leave it there. And, I'm not trashing it. It's good, but I don't know. Seeing Ken Liu's Dandelion Dynasty here, it makes me very excited. I just did a whole video about the top 25 series that I'm looking to read in the next couple of years, and I was on it, and so this just makes me that much more excited to get to that. Tomi Adeyemi's Children of Blood and Bone. I'm halfway through the audiobook there. I think it's great, and it's a definitely different world. I'm not sure if it's top 100, but because of its unique elements, I'm very excited about that. Same with Poppy War. I haven't read that, but I think because of the unique aspect it has, cool that it's there. I was very surprised to see Children of Virtue and Vengeance. I haven't read it yet, but a couple of reviews I've seen of it has not been kind, to be honest. Even one rant review by somebody who generally, maybe if I don't trust, but I think they have okay, good opinions, trashed it. Very interesting. Rage of Dragons, I don't know, that just seems soon. I haven't read it yet. I have the Kindle version. I'll probably get to that at some point. But that's the end of the list. And that's the end of me talking about it. I'm not going to belay this and make this super long. Those are just some of my quick hits. I didn't really have a script for this, as you could probably tell. But those are my thoughts on the Time Top 100. It's not perfect. These lists are never going to be perfect, and you're always going to disagree with them. That's the fun of these sort of lists and discussions. Still incredibly tragic that Steven Erikson and Robin Hobb are not on this list. Like, awful. But besides that, hey, good stuff. Good stuff. As always, first in, last out.